Mike Brondbjerg's recent talk on data visualisation was fascinating, really interesting. It's an area that I haven't done any work in myself, so I was interested to learn a bit more about what he does, and it was just great to see. He talked about the whole scale from the kind of the boring day-to-day data charts stuff that he does, all the way through to some really abstract and fascinating pieces of art that he creates just from data, such as human heartbeats, turning it into data animations, setting it to music, etc. It was amazing to see, really inspiring.
Have you had any exposure to virtual reality headsets?
No, I haven't. I think mostly because of my own tool set. I'm kind of I don't do a lot in 3JS or kind of Unity and that sort of thing, so I haven't managed to move what I do into that sphere, if you like.
Do you see that happening at any point?
I'll be honest, I'm just not a big fan of VR. I quite like AR. I think maybe it's something about the kind of the AR seems more interesting to me because you're kind of sampling from the world and you're kind of potentially augmenting reality, and that's kind of what behind all my images and things is that idea of sampling from the world and sampling from the data around you and doing something interesting with it. VR seems too closed to me. But I mean, great, but it just seems like too much of a. It would be lovely, yeah. I mean, but I think really the truth is, while I excuse that, it's because I don't know Unity and I don't know 3JS well enough to be able to do it, because people do amazing, lovely stuff in VR, but it's just all the kit. I think that's the thing as well. There's a real barrier to entry and a barrier to audience as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so maybe one day as the kit becomes more accessible to everyone, and I learn Unity, I think.
Because the overlap with audio.
That immersive experience, clients have talked to me. There's a project going on at the moment about more immersive environments. So it's not VR, but it's kind of a more three-dimensional environment is all I can say at the moment. But that would certainly be nice. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about using audio as an input? Whether you analyse the music first and create a data set from that, or whether that's something you can do within processing?
You can do it directly, and use that P5JS sketch I showed you with the magazine this very week. Because it's doing FFT, fast Fourier transformations, it's quite a little bit an intensive process to kind of analyse data and visualise at the same time. So with the two fingers thing, the reasons thing, I actually pre-processed it into a data set, and basically for every frame I had a value of the audio. Basically, it was just amplitude is all I used. But if you want to do that P5JS one looks at bass, middle, and treble, and sort of maps it to different aspects, and it is doing it real time in your browser because browsers are quite fast. So if you're not asking too much of it, but there is that lag. If you the graphics lag and so you've got to kind of shrink your ambitions a little bit if you want to do the audio analysis at the same time. But then it's really nice if you're doing something interactive and you're doing that live. If you're doing something that's responding to sound dynamically, and also concert visuals and that sort of thing, that opens all that up, doesn't it? But you've got to be much more efficient with what you do. So.
What experience you've had with harnessing, grabbing live data, working with obstacles or kind of things that you've heard, like surprises or that side of it?
Yeah. So that Arduino was great. So learnings from that project was, don't be your own guinea pig, because the cold dead hand of a developer, when you're sitting developing this system, going, this is working great, this is fine. I need to turn the levels up a bit because But you basically calibrate it to your own biometrics, if you like, which turns out is nothing like anyone else's. And particularly heart patients who are just off the scale in terms of the signal you get from them. And also, hospital power supply is the electrically noisiest power supply you can plug into, basically. So don't ever, because you just get noise in your signal all the way through. So yeah, I mean, but it is kind of lo-fi, and it works to a point. What we had to do was do a bit of smoothing on it, sort of, just to kind of some noise is good, some noise is bad. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So the forms are there and the pace is there, but sometimes you're smoothing that out a little bit. Sometimes you want spiky, but this was kind of a therapeutic kind of place. You wanted it kind of smoother.
You doing anything? Sorry, doing anything in terms of on a macro scale in terms of City Hall about kind of using data live to then feed back into the public's experience of the city they live in?
I'd like to, yeah. I mean, we don't really have that kind of. The vision is coming, yeah, because it's the whole sort of smart city kind of approach, and basically doing a lot with kind of smart lampposts and 5G. Yeah, exactly. So security aside, apparently that's an issue. But that's the idea, is that we start looking at. I mean, some of the data we use is like 8 years old. It's like census data from 2011. So it's way off live data. So we have massive data sets and massive population projections, all that sort of stuff. But live is a very different ballgame.
So is that JSON files? Because I'm trying to get involved with the arts driver thing at Brighton.
Yeah. So typically on the City Hall, there's the London data store. Basically, there's lots of data on there, and what it typically comes out as is a massive spreadsheet, or a CSV, or and increasingly we're adding an API to those data files as well. So we're picking individually, certain data sets and adding an API, so you can make direct requests to the data store. Yeah, and that being a way, a kind of stepping stone to then being a live data feed potentially. So something like TfL, for instance, they've got a live data feed and have opened their data feed up, and lots of apps have been built on the back of that live data feed. So they're much more on that front. But we're, especially the intelligence unit and the GLA is much more strategic necessarily than kind of responsive day to day, if you like. So it tends to deal with more strategic stuff.
Are they actively pursuing that way to go, like the data city?
Yeah. That smart city approach is definitely being put in place, and it's kind of a lot
driving that?
A lot of kind of European research funding, that sort of thing. So for how much longer? But they have kind of these part of this sort of big incubator network across Europe called Sharing Cities. And so instead of everyone in silos developing their own sort of technology, it's actually sort of sharing research and collaborating across different cities around Europe and the world to create these sort of solutions. So it's definitely coming. Not this year though, I don't think.
It's only for cities though. It's not for like rural areas or anything like that, is it?
I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't then spill out, but you have a density of sensors, don't you, in London. So one thing that we're doing at the moment with the Alan Turing Institute is, I'm not really here to talk about City Hall, but it's so I don't want to go off message too much. But yeah, Alan Turing Institute, they're looking at real-time air pollution monitoring, basically, because at the moment air pollution is modelled and kind of predicted based on sort of historical data, but what the Alan Turing Institute are doing and working with us a little bit to look at the visualisation of like how do you model and predict the weather over the next 12, 24, 72 hours, so you can actually, so through an increasingly elaborate network of sensors and various sensors and Google car monitors that are moving up and down, moving around the city all the time, taking all of that data in and making a real-time sort of data science model to spit out a real-time projection of what the air pollution is likely to be. So that's probably one of the first things that would come on stream, I guess, in terms of real-time data.
The XR rebellion was a proof of that.
Yeah, suddenly everything dropped. Yeah, and we've just the mayor just launched the ULEZ, which is the ultra low emissions zone in the middle, and it already within 2 weeks the emissions have dropped. So obviously they're keeping a keen eye on it at the moment. So air pollution is a big issue. Yeah.
You mentioned playing about with things and doing little experiments and then people finding you, and obviously you used Instagram.
Yeah.
But I just wondered how else people discover you, because you've been involved with some amazing projects.
networking. I think it is. I mean, it's like, I guess the data viz world is and data art world, generative world is kind of a fairly small world, and you talk to people, you work with people, you kind of collaborate, you bounce ideas off each other, meet people at conferences like John, which is why I'm standing here today probably, and yeah, so it's that. So it's a mix. Twitter's quite good. I mean, for that, and also terrible for. it's as productive as it is unproductive, right? You know, but Instagram's great because you just put a picture up and then run away. You know, so and that's how the Information is Beautiful job came along. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just it is that networking. Not to such a degree that it was a raging success because I had to go and get a job at City Hall. So so it's some and some. Again, Brexit.
Were you a traditional developer before you started doing the visualisation stuff?
Yeah, so I was a Flash developer.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I know. I can. I know. I've got some sympathy in the room. So yeah, Steve Jobs. Basically killed my business overnight, and a lot of people in this room, I suspect, or some people in this room. So it was like, but what I'd also always done with Flash, I was a developer, but I had a kind of a creative aspect to it, which is why I like Flash. Flash was a really nice place to be a developer, but also work with animation, and also work with sort of data-driven animation and bringing variables into that. So I'd build websites for brands that maybe brought data from a content management system, so like text data or articles and that sort of thing, or images and things. And so I'd always kind of been used to using APIs, like you're saying, sort of JSON APIs and things way back then. And then the iPhone came along, obviously, and the iPad, and so did my daughter at the time, which was compound focus. So I thought, what can I do in terms of interactivity and data, and also something, I think what pushed me was to move away from more branding stuff and something with a bit more substance. So I wanted to do something that's less fickle, less marketing driven maybe, although there's marketing stuff in there. So yeah, that's what kind of pushed me there. So yeah, developer, but always wanted to draw, but couldn't, as you know. So yeah. Yeah.
Just a relatively 2D question.
Yeah.
You mentioned somewhere early on you were talking about the tote bags and the t-shirts sort of being output.
Yep.
And you talked about processing, which you maybe realise is like a natural extension of Flash programming to an extent.
Yep. Yep.
How you mentioned specifically it's really good for creating high-res output images.
Yep.
So
if you're drawing a triangle as a vector shape, are you an illustrator or would you? Yeah. So you've used Illustrator, right? Yeah. So a vector graphic is basically a series of points. Yeah, it's a mathematical representation of a shape. So if you're drawing in that way and not drawing with bitmap, then you can output from processing as a PDF or an SVG, which means that it's infinitely, you can print it on the side of a building, infinitely scalable, So that's great for that.
Yeah.
If you're doing more textural kind of raster graphic, bitmap type graphic work, then you can also use processing to kind of draw off canvas. So it's not just limited to the size of your screen necessarily. You can create a sort of graphics buffer of 10,000 by 10,000 pixels and draw into that and output that image. It takes a lot longer, but that's what we did with those the tiger ones, because they had kind of gradients in the vector in the things, and it didn't translate when you put it out as vector. It didn't quite translate, and it was just a bit buggy. So actually, we just did very high resolution sort of PNGs, transparent PNGs. So yeah, processing is great for all sorts of inputs and outputs, and yeah, you can put audio straight into it. You can put sensors straight into it. Yeah.
But I've never thought of it as a sort of direct to print.
Yeah, it certainly can be. Yeah. I mean, caveats, obviously. Yeah.
So off the back of that, can you animate from processing?
Yes. So pretty much all the animation you saw tonight was done in processing, basically.
Even when you're on the train.
Even when you're on the train, yeah. Yeah, this has seen a lot of action, this computer. And the workflow is basically you generate a frame by frame by frame and spit out a still frame of every frame, a still image of every frame, and then you can re-import that back into processing. It will turn it into a video for you. But if you've got something like Premiere or Final Cut or various, you can just import those frames as a sequence into Premiere. And that's where then I do my editing and then sort of add post-production effects and stuff like in After Effects and that sort of thing. So,
how much post do you do, like in terms of using the? So I'm always fascinated by I don't really know a lot about this sort of field, but when you're starting with data, and for some reason it reminds me a bit of, there was a film last few years called Interstellar where they visualised the black hole using actual data from calculation. Yeah. But there's kind of on various forums like Reddit and stuff like that, was like a debate about how much of it was actual data and how much of it was Hollywood, if you like. So I'm just interested in terms of that translation and how does that translate to like working with a client? Do you sort of come to, I hate to use the term happy accident, that's a horrible term, but do you know what I mean in terms of getting there and being like, that looks cool. Yeah,
some clients understand. Tiger were really good for that iteration. They really understood that. Just starting sketching, and David McCandless for Information is Beautiful. Again, we went through lots and lots of different styles, and we just kept on exploring. And I think thinking back to my chart of kind of like purpose. What's the intention of the project? If it's to be informative and to communicate a specific message or a specific metric, then you need to be very representative about it. Do you know what I mean? But if the purpose is to be a bit more expressive, then you can be looser with it and you can just play around the edges with it a bit more. Maybe add some noise in. So okay, some data's doing that, but actually you just want a bit of hairiness around it. So you just add a bit of noise in there just to kind of make it a bit more interesting. So, and it's horses for courses really. What's the project about? What stays within the brief and stays within the truth of the brief and the project. So and in terms of post-production, something like this is direct out processing. Wow. Frame by frame, just recomp back together, as are all of those. That's no post-production on those. Something like this. Here, I just put some some blur around the edge and sort of chromatic aberration stuff where it sort of separates but that's just a Premiere After Effects add-on sort of thing, and some layering. But you could actually, Frederick, my friend, does all that chromatic aberration in processing as well, so you can do it. You've just got to be bothered enough. So it's like for production's sake, there's no point recreating what you can. So but it adds that nice kind of, and it does it nicely because based on different lenses and stuff. So some.
For external triggering then into processing, I'm trying to understand the kind of program-to-program thing. So if it's for live or something actually happening, use that Max, MSP, that sort of stuff. So can it take in external feeds?
So that Arduino stuff, that was going straight into processing.
So you go straight in and choose what you want, how it's going, what parameters.
So you pick it up, you're listening, it's got a serial input basically, so you're listening on serial number 1 or whatever it is, and then you get your data flowing from there. Because Arduino, those little boards, are basically the interface for that. The way you code those boards is a version of processing. Is basically what, it's great because you can program microprocessors yourself now, effectively.
It's a single task. That's right.
Yeah. So it's basically just saying it's listening for signals from things connected to the board, goes through the microprocessor chip, and then sends it back how you want it, basically. And so you can write that in normal processing-like language, and it turns it into machine code, puts it on the microprocessor, and that's it. You built your own specialist thing.
And latency's like?
Yeah, it's negligible. So it's super input, and obviously Arduinos give you, depending on what sensors you plug onto it, give you unlimited, vibration or sound or light sensors or atmospheric sensors, that sort of thing. So that's a nice way in, basically. But maybe noisy sometimes, maybe work off batteries rather than.
Really? So what, battery just is good to work off batteries?
Yeah, because you don't get any electrical noise, particularly in a hospital.
Well,
so
having everything on the same power phase is always good.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about it except that when I plugged it into a hospital, I went, that's not nice. So yeah.
Have you looked at all done or thought about doing anything with fitness data? Because you've got things like Strava, which are huge amounts of heart rate, elevation, pace, data.
It would. Yeah, we got a call from Microsoft once. Again, this was connecting with someone at Reasons. They should really do Reasons every year, not shut it down because it's really good. That's the thing. But yeah, Microsoft had the Microsoft Band for a while, which is their kind of Fitbit, and yeah, we sort of explored using the accelerometer in that. So you could use your mobile phone as an accelerometer. Right. It's got one in there, so that's quite a nice input. You've got that 3-dimensional and force variables in there. So we started looking at using that and pulse as a way of creating art, and it's something I want to return to really, is that kind of, you can do that, that accelerometer as a brush idea, so the more you move, the more expressive you are, but it's also painting with your pulse at the same time. So it was the idea of maybe we could hook that onto break dancers or BMX people or trampoliners or acrobats or whatever, and you get all sorts of interesting accelerometer data from that. Download it, put it on, and see what you get, sort of thing. So as but yeah, not that kind of quantified self-tracking thing. I kind of like the, I think who's that guy? Who did that report every year? I should know.
Yeah.
Bonus points.
James Felton?
Yeah.
Feltron, yeah, the Feltron report, wasn't it? Yeah. He kind of just done that for 10 years, and he just kind of owned that whole scene. It's like, what can I do that's better than that? Yeah, I'd like to, but yeah, I think as a creative input, accelerometers in these devices would be really interesting. Yeah.
Just wondering, do you I quite like sort of 3D stuff and played a little bit with 3GS. Do you think 3D should be used more in things like news media to kind of engage people on data, or do you think it's not that relevant?
People hate 3D pie charts, right? It's like the first rule of data viz is no 3D pie charts, because there's that kind of distortion of value. Yeah, so pie charts are arguably bad anyway, but we all used them, still do. But when you do that, you get the foreshortening kind of thing, and so that the value there looks bigger than the value there. So I think 3D in data viz is and you get obscuring of other data. So when it's a spatial thing, though, I think it does have value. So in GIS work and mapping work, that there's something to that, and your ability to kind of get sort of at ground level and see the data kind of moving around you and be able to explore. I think 3D works when it's in motion, because you get a sense of the depth. When something moves, when it's still, you can't always tell, is that behind that, or how far behind that is, or is that big but close, or is it far back and small, big or far away. Yeah. So, but if it moves, actually you get that sense, that parallax sense of scale better. Even better if it's interactive. So something like 3GS and data, yes. But you have to put the user in control, and they have to be able to kind of, explore it. So you got with caution, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something I'd like to do more of, and the globe is an obvious one. You just, but obviously we're only seeing what's on the front of the globe, not on the back of the globe. So it's interesting, it's engaging, and it's. But maybe then you move into doing more, depending on the purpose. You do something and then more 2D later on. So it's engagement and then inform. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a random sci-fi question. Your concerns and hopes for the use of AI and its merging with data in the future. Just wondering what your kind of dreams and worries are for the future about all this technology, AI, machine learning. Briefly.
Yeah. I think it is. It's like, so we were talking about the Alan Turing work in terms of air pollution. That the kind of machine learning work they're doing there is really, you couldn't do that sort of in regular statistical analysis, if you like. So that sort of thing is really interesting. As long as you understand that it is just a model, though, and it's a the algorithm is learning from data it's previously seen in order to make the next prediction. And as long as you understand and that is communicated somehow to the user, that it's well, it's based around kind of so the algorithm is learning. So you're training the algorithm to say, okay, here's the data. What do we think the pollution is going to be? And then you basically feed back into that system to say, you thought it was going to be this, but actually it was this. So next time you project, what do you think it's going to be? And you're training that system in a way that you can't do with sort of normal sort of data analysis, if you like. And so as that system evolves and as it learns more and more and as it tries to make more predictions, it gets better and better at making those predictions because it's seen this data before. It's seen this time of year with this wind, with this type of particulates, on that type of road, with this sort of traffic. It's going to be that. Better than we can do that, you know. So that's really useful. But one of the problems we had with that was actually communicating uncertainty in that visualization. So we had to, on a map of a grid of projections, basically, it was a small grid, saying what they think the level of data of pollution is going to be, but also within that metric also communicate our uncertainty about it. And so what we did was actually did little coloured gauges, tiny lines that look like a kind of wind map, a kind of a vector map.
Lows and highs just know where it's actually predicted.
So the lows and highs were colour, but the orientation of the needle, if you like, was showing certainty and uncertainty. So you're saying, oh, we reckon it's going to be terrible there, but we're not sure. And so that the model knows it knows when it's not sure about something or there's something fishy about that value.
It's always going to be an estimate.
So it's always an estimate, but that's what's great because it can make lots of estimates a lot of the time, better than we can based on lots more data than we can possibly assimilate and have experience of. It's why I guess they argue that cars are safer. You know, autonomous cars or autonomous braking systems are safer than us because it's seen more accidents, it's seen more things that lead up to accidents, and so it knows how to.
Moral question about choosing, all those sort of stuff. Who
Yeah.
you choose to kill.
I know, but it takes you into those.
Thought experiment.
Yeah, it takes you into all that field, doesn't it? But yeah, I think my I don't think I have necessarily a huge issue with AI. I have an issue with data privacy, and that's a big part of that smart cities thing is data ethics as well. And what do we bring into our homes, and what we shouldn't necessarily bring into our homes. So I'm kind of a Luddite. Yeah, and people have done good art exhibitions about that sort of thing and about data privacy and but yeah. So that would be my main issue at the moment is people just going, great, it's a smart TV, and actually what it's doing is uploading every conversation you have. They don't know who you are, but they know what you do, and they know that you're the same entity that did that other thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of, there's a difference, it's that difference between, anonymized but yet still tracked. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, they don't know where I live, pseudo-anonymous. But no, exactly, but they know what you buy, and they know you're on that screen, and then you're going here, and they know I'm in Worthing. They don't know necessarily, well, they do know my name, and they also know my emails, but so it's like, but what do we let into our homes? Like TVs that, like I say, that so slightly paranoid, but I think with a bit of awareness makes you more skeptical about it. Do you know what I mean? Where people who aren't technically aware, and I'm only marginally technically aware of these issues, I'm more willing. It's like my nephews and nieces have all got Alexas in their bedroom, so they can play music, and it's like. Just it, and it's just mindlessly put there. Do you know what I mean? And so yeah, yeah, take that out. Yeah, exactly. Wax cylinders. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I'm as skeptical as any layman. Yeah. So cloud computing is that issue of like, oh, it's too big to handle. It's not, because there's just infinite processing and infinite power should they want to. But I think that the access to tools is a really important thing, and also access to pen and paper and data kind of awareness and using your own data, and it's sort of what you're talking about, kind of sort of self measuring, your heart rate and your kind of fitness achievements gives you kind of agency in your own data. So I think, and that's a lot of what sort of Stephanie Pazavik was talking about in her Dear Data book, is that was them documenting their lives, and Stephanie and Georgia were writing postcards to each other every week, basically, and creating data visualizations of their own lives. But that kind of engagement with your own data gives you agency in your data, and also makes you aware of what other people might have control over your data, and makes you aware what data exists.
Yeah,
so I think
we give up too much too easily,
Yeah.
unknowingly.
Yeah, unknowingly, yeah.
Thing.
And so
If you choose to do it, that's fine.
if you make a deal and it's a fair deal, and you know what the deal is, then that's fine. But it's the unwitting deal that you're being made, you know, and it's there's still no such thing as a free lunch. So it's like if you're not paying for it, you're paying with your data, isn't it? Is that the saying? You know, and
Like, so like, if something's free, then
you're the product. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Can we have a big hand for...
Thank you.